Hi everybody, this is Ashley with Ashley Says So, and I am back with another old Hollywood scandal video. And baby, before we get started, let me go ahead and give my shout out, honey, to Miss Bianca Spivey. Child, Bianca is the reason for that Lit the Fame video. Do you hear me? I am just grateful that you enjoy my content enough to even want to request me to do somebody. And on top of Bianca, shout out to all of you guys anyway for allowing me to have a break to enjoy my daughter's graduation. Congratulations to all of the rest of the graduates out there. But now, since all of that is out of the way, it's time to get on back to the scandal. Let's go ahead and get to it after this disclaimer.
Hey y'all, I'm not sure what's true or false in this video. It is all for entertainment purposes. I have done my research. Make sure you guys do yours. Stay positive and stay grounded. Let's get to the video.
Ella Jane Fitzgerald was born on April the 25th, 1917 in Newport News, Virginia. Her mother's name was Temperance Tempe Henry, and her father's name was William Fitzgerald. And William and Tempe were not married when Tempe gave birth to Ella, but they did try to come together to make a little family for their new daughter. But unfortunately, both of these people had explosive tempers. Not only that, William and Tempe also cheated on each other all the time. So soon William became fed up with this type of life, and by the time Ella was 2 years old, he ended up leaving the family. Life was already hard before, but now that Tempe found herself a young single mother, she found it extraordinarily hard. And so when a very handsome Portuguese immigrant by the name of Joe da Silva came into her life, Tempe was ecstatic. First of all, she was happy to be able to experience love again, and secondly, she was happy because now she was going to be able to have a two-parent household for Ella. So after being in a relationship with Joe da Silva maybe for 1 or 2 years, Tempe took little Ella and they moved to Yonkers, New York so they can live with Joe da Silva. And in 1923, Tempe gave birth to a child by Joe da Silva, a half-sister to Ella by the name of Frances. And at first, things seemed very normal with this little family of four, especially when it came to Ella. You know, she was an exceptional student in elementary school. I think also she may have taken music lessons. She also loved, baby, to play outside. So, you know, it very much seemed like a little regular kid with a regular childhood. But rumor has it that behind closed doors, there was a very ugly truth going on. And the ugly truth, or the ugly rumor, I should say, is that Joe da Silva turned out not to be that great of a stepdad. Joe da Silva felt like everything and anything that ever went wrong in the household was Ella's fault. Gossip claims that he would yell at Ella, curse at Ella, and definitely treat her way different than he treated his birth child Frances. But gossip also claims that this treatment never really went over the top because Tempe was in the household. So she was always there to temper the situation, or, you know, keep things in harmony and balance. Well, one morning in the year 1932, Tempe was either headed off to work or she was headed off to run errands, and she ended up having a car accident. And although Tempe didn't die instant or at the scene, you know, she did linger a few days, but her injuries were still just too great. And so this was a terrible time for the family. You know, nobody expected Tempe's death. You know, she was kind of just there one moment and gone the next. So everybody was taking it badly, but Ella was taking it worst of all. Child, the folks say that Ella had like a small mental breakdown after her mother passed. And this makes sense because her mother was the only one there for her, and definitely her main protector. And I hate to say it, but Ella definitely did need protection, like right now, today, at that time, because allegedly as soon as Tempe passed away, Joe da Silva started to make some very nefarious moves when it came to Ella. Baby, the folks say that not only was this man talking to Ella any kind of way and cursing her out, it's also alleged that now he had started physically abusing Ella and then sexually abusing her every night as well. Ella went through this terrible treatment for at least 3 months before she or someone else reached out to one of her aunts and told the aunt what was going on. So the aunt swooped in and took Ella out of the situation, and her aunt was trying to be a good Samaritan by taking Ella in, but she didn't really have much experience in child rearing, and she definitely didn't have any experience in raising a teenager. So she didn't really spend any quality time with Ella. So because Ella didn't really have anybody watching out for her or raising her, and because she was so hurt and so upset with the way her mother had passed away, she started to act out. Baby Ella stopped showing up to school. She started running around with some bad characters. And a lot of times when people hear this, they start feeling like, oh no, young Ella, oh my gosh, that is so sad, baby. Let me tell you something. Ella Fitzgerald could hold her doggone own, baby. She started running numbers. She started being a lookout for prostitutes and pimps to do their thing. She may have had a hand in dropping off certain drugs at certain locations, and she was doing it not only to be bad, that's the minimal reason. She really was doing it to make money. She was becoming a hustler. And to be honest with you, there's no doubt that if Ella could have stayed doing this stuff uninterrupted, child, it's not no telling what kind of kingpin or queenpin that she would have became in these streets. But fortunately, fate had another plan. Now, Ella's auntie may not have been on top of her comings and goings, but the doggone school system was. They declared Ella truant, and one day when she was returning back to her aunt's house, the cops burst in and hauled her away to a girls' school, which was a school for truant, wayward type schoolgirls. But honestly, while this situation seems like a sigh of relief, like these people had rescued Ella from the street life, oh child, that girl's home was way worse than the streets could have ever been to Ella Fitzgerald. They made Ella sleep in a cold, dark basement with no blankets. They barely gave her any food, and when they did, it was basically pig slop. They beat on her from night to day. And Ella was not the only one they were doing this to. Allegedly, they were doing it to all of the black girls in their care. But this just goes to show how formidable Ella was at surviving things, because while the rest of the young black girls were sitting in there crying and not knowing what to do, Ella was planning her doggone escape. And I guess after about maybe 2 to 3 months of living there, she did escape. And she was only around 16 or 17 at this time, and this period right here was another one of the hardest moments in her life. Ella was just kind of on the streets winging it. Sometimes she would have friends that let her spend the night, but finding a roof over her head was just one thing. She still had to have food to eat. She still sometimes needed clothes, underwear, feminine products. She needed a lot of things, and she had no money to get them. And so she still would kind of do underworld stuff here and there, but she didn't want to get arrested by the police again. She was scared to go back to that girl's home. So she used her talents and she started dancing and singing on the street corners for change. And then somebody told her about an upcoming talent show at the Apollo Theater that was supposed to have a huge prize. And the contest was held on November the 21st, 1934. Ella, who had danced on the street corners, also planned to dance at this competition. But when she got to the Apollo and started looking around at the other girls that she was going to be competing with if she danced, she noticed that they looked so much better than her. These girls had beautiful costumes. They had shiny shoes. Their hairdos were just right. Ella, who was homeless at the time, had these little ran over boots on, her dress had holes in them, her hair was all over her head, and so immediately she was ashamed. She didn't want to compete against these girls, and so at first she was going to withdraw herself, but then she came up with another plan. Instead of having to dance and compete against these dance girls, she would sing. And so Ella walks out onto the stage and everybody is giggling, they're kind of whispering about what she has on and how she looks, and then Ella opens her mouth to sing, and the entire audience is stunned silent. She blew that crowd completely away. And so she received a standing ovation. And that little raggedy girl that all of the rest of the girls looked better than won first place prize. But she couldn't enjoy it all the way through. And I am saying that because that first place prize that they gave Ella, it came with a good amount of money, but also on top of the money was supposed to be a chance for Ella to come back and perform 3 more times at the Apollo Theater. Well, the managers or owners or whoever of the Apollo took that part of the prize away. You know, they just gave Ella the money and they told her that she was not welcome to come back and perform on their stage for 3 more times. And it was because the Apollo was ashamed of Ella. They felt like she was unkempt, and allegedly some of them were even calling her ugly. But Ella wasn't tripping. She took her money and she went on about her way. And it was actually a good thing that she didn't make a scene over this, because what the Apollo managers were trying to deny her, somebody else was about to give her that and much more. And this guy's name was Charles Linton. Now, Charles Linton was a very handsome ladies' man who was the lead singer of the Chick Webb band. And this right here is Chick Webb. And if he looks kind of funny or kind of different to you, it's because he suffered with spinal tuberculosis. So it kind of gave him a very short stature and a hunchback look. But no matter how bad his back was hunched up or lumped up or whatever you want to call it, this little guy Chick Webb was a master. He was a god on the drum set. And that is why he had his own band. And just so happened, a few weeks before Ella appeared at the Apollo, Chick Webb told Charles Linton, you know, hey, you are a great lead singer, but we as a band are having trouble breaking into the mainstream. And he went further to tell Charles Linton, you know, I still want you to be the male lead singer of our band, but I feel like we need a female lead singer. We need somebody who is sexy and beautiful and who has the voice of an angel so she can bring us the fame that we deserve. And so he told Charles Linton to go out on a mission to try to find them a female singer that would fit this bill. And Charles Linton had either heard Ella Fitzgerald's voice with his own ears or he heard about her. Whatever the case was, Charles Linton felt like Ella Fitzgerald would be the best fit to front the Chick Webb band. And so after Ella won that talent show, Charles Linton ended up getting in touch with her and telling her, hey, you know, I want you to come and audition for the band that I'm in, the Chick Webb band. And Ella agreed. But baby, when I tell you Ella Fitzgerald walked into that audition room and got the shock of her life, child, they say the Chick Webb was just kind of standing back looking at Ella like this the whole time she was walking into the room, just kind of frowned up at her full figure. Then baby said when Ella reached for the mic to sing her song for the audition, Chick gonna yell out, oh no you not. You're not putting that on my bandstand. Look at her big self. You're not putting her on my bandstand. Get out. Out. All of y'all just get out. Child threw Ella out before she even had a chance to open her mouth and sing for him. Charles Linton was furious. How dare Chick Webb treat this young lady like this? And furthermore, how dare he talk about anybody being fat and ugly while his back sitting up there crooked up and laid to the side? It was rude, it was nasty, and Charles didn't like it. But Ella, she never said a word, and she is a good one, baby, because I know plenty of us would have definitely had a lot to say to Chick looking the way he looked and then trying to talk about somebody. But Ella never said a word. She just left the audition. Charles Linton was mad enough for him and Ella. So the next day he went back up to Chick Webb and he told him, listen man, you crazy not to realize Ella is your meal ticket. And if you won't let her audition to be a lead singer, you won't have no lead singer at all, because I'm gonna quit if you don't give her the chance to audition. Now this right here put a pause on Chick Webb and his nasty attitude, because if his only lead singer quit, you know, he had no time to scramble and try to find somebody else, have somebody else learn all the songs and all that good stuff. And so he told Charles Linton, fine, bring her back in, I'll listen to her audition. And so Ella came back in and she did audition, and Chick Webb liked what he heard, but he acted like he just couldn't get over the way she looked. And so he told Ella straight out that she wasn't pretty, she wasn't the usual girl that they would have in front of the band, but he told her he liked her voice, and so he said he was going to give her a 2-week trial to perform with the band, and if the audiences liked her, then she would have a job. So Ella did the 2-week trial, and the audiences absolutely loved her, and so she became the official lead singer of the Chick Webb band. And right after that happened, baby, Ella Fitzgerald took off. Child, the folks just fell in love with this woman's voice. She had incredible diction, and she had perfect tone, and she knew how to scat la da da dee da with no problem. Within the first year after signing to sing with Chick Webb, she had a #1 record, top of the chart. Every singer either hated her or they tried to mimic her. In fact, Ella was soon named the First Lady of Song. Club promoters and club owners were throwing money at the Chick Webb band in order to get Ella to sing at their club. Baby, I mean, her schedule was full. Chick Webb could just name his price and everybody was going to pay it. Ella was super sought after. And because of this, it became inherently clear to everybody around them that it was Ella Fitzgerald who was the star, not the Chick Webb band. I mean, they were okay, but it was Ella that people were paying big bucks to come and see. So at any time, Ella could have easily ditched the Chick Webb band for another band, or she could have went solo with her own band. But as bad as Chick Webb treated Ella when they first met, Ella never did him the same way, and she never left the Chick Webb band. She sat there and let him and everybody else eat off of her name, eat off of her talent. So from 1937 to 1939, Ella Fitzgerald brought unprecedented success to herself as well as the Chick Webb band. She also had a hit record called A Tisket a Tasket that brought her a lot of money. But in June of 1939, Chick Webb ended up passing away at the early age of 34 years old. His spinal tuberculosis had taken his life. When this happened, everybody thought that Ella Fitzgerald might be finished because Chick Webb, whom she had actually grown very close to by this time, was like the only band leader that she knew, the only business partner really that she knew. So nobody knew if she was gonna really be able to navigate this thing by herself. Well, baby, Ella didn't have to worry about any of that, because the rest of the band members in the Chick Webb band decided that the band should belong to Ella, that she should be the new band leader. And so they renamed the band Ella Fitzgerald and Her Famous Orchestra. And Ella kept right on scorching the top of the charts and scorching the stages like nothing had ever happened. Now let's take a little small break and get into a little bit of scandal right here. Because baby, why come the folks say that Ella Fitzgerald was a quiet hoe? I'm just playing and being messy, y'all. Gossip claims that she was not a hoe. You know, she didn't have a lot of partners, but, you know, maybe she had messed around with about 2 or 3 men that were in the band. But Ella was very guarded with her affairs. You know, she didn't play that kiss and tell mess. But in 1937, something happened that made her secret love affairs come out on Front Street. And rumor has it that is because Ella Fitzgerald became pregnant by one of her lovers. Now, Ella was only around 20 years old at this time, you know, and her career was just now blooming. Also, she was not in a monogamous relationship with this guy. This was just kind of a fling, and so she went for an abortion. Unfortunately, the abortion was not a smooth one. Actually, it said that the complications from this abortion made it to where she could never have children again. Now, I got all of that information from an article online, which could be speculation, but I tell you what's not speculation, and those are the rumors regarding Ella's first marriage. Now, the folks say in the year 1941, when Ella was around 23 or 24 years old, she fell madly and deeply in love with a man named Benny Cornegay. And they say that Benny Cornegay used to show up at all of her shows and sneak backstage and tell her just how pretty she was. He used to tell her that she sang so beautifully. And you know, when he went to sleep at night, all he could do is dream and see her face. He said things like, you know, I'm just a lowly dock worker, Miss Ella, you know, and I don't have much money. But I promise you, ain't nobody gonna love you the way I love you, Miss Ella. And so Ella's head was in the clouds. I'm not even sure if Ella dated this man for a full month before she ended up marrying him in that same year of 1941. And immediately after marrying Benny Cornegay, baby Ella started handing over her check. It did not bother her to give her money away to this man, but although Ella wasn't bothered, everybody around her was extra bothered. Child, the band members hated to see Benny Cornegay coming their way, and every time they would see Ella hand him one of her checks, they would start frowning up and, what's wrong with her? Can't she see this man using her for her money? He don't really want her. Then they would say stuff like, shoo, if she just want to give her money away like that, she could have gave that money away to me. They just didn't like it. And the spirit of dislike for Benny Cornegay was spreading so far that even Ella's manager started to dislike him. Even some of the people at the record labels that she recorded for didn't like her husband Benny. In fact, it was some of these type people with the big money, they decided to do a background check on Benny Cornegay. And they found out that yes, he was currently employed as a dock worker, but a few years before, he had actually been arrested and convicted of being a drug dealer. And so everybody who didn't like him and wanted to get him out of Ella's life ran up to Ella with this evidence. He's not a good guy. He's a drug dealer. They told her that they didn't really feel like Benny loved her. They told her that he's just using her for her money. And eventually it did change Ella's mind. She did not want to be married to Benny anymore. She actually started seeking an annulment. And Ella, who had always been a very private person, was very embarrassed to have to go in front of a judge and do this annulment. And she was embarrassed to put the reason is that this guy was using her for her money. And then the judge didn't make it no better. They say he told Ella, listen, gal, you made a very bad choice of a man, and maybe you should just focus on singing a tisket and a tasket and leave the boys alone, talking to her like she's 5 years old or something. But to move on with the story, thankfully this bad marriage with Benny Cornegay did not make Ella jaded when it came to the affairs of love, because she ended up getting married a second time. This marriage happened in the year 1947, and her groom was double bassist player Ray Brown. And some people were kind of gossiping about this marriage a little bit because Ray Brown was only 21 years old at this time, and Ella was 30 years old. Luckily, regardless of the whispers on the streets around them, it really seems like Ray Brown and Ella Fitzgerald were in love. Matter of fact, when Ella's half-sister Frances had a young son that she had trouble caring for, Ella took the baby boy and adopted him as her own to raise with her husband, Ray Brown. In fact, she named her nephew or adopted son, Ray Brown Jr. And it seems like this family dynamic should have worked because there was a lot of love there. But unfortunately, Ella and Ray's careers got in the way. See, Ella was a workaholic. It is all she ever knew. So she was rarely at home. And then on the off chance that she was at home, Ray Brown would have to be away. But it boiled down to Ella's career and time away that was the most detrimental, because not only was the husband missing her, her son was also missing her. In fact, this became a point of contention between mother and son for several years. Ray Brown Jr. just felt like his mama wasn't there. He would see his friends have their mamas around. The mamas would come up to the school and take him to the park, and Ella was never there to do that for him. And then it became a big deal because Ray Brown, the father, trying to look out for his son, would tell Ella, can't you miss one of those shows? Dang, do you have to accept every gig they throw your way? And Ella would snap back, this is what I am. I am a singer. You knew this before we got together. So eventually the whole marriage just broke down, and they ended up divorcing in the year 1953. After this divorce, Ella decided to focus strictly on her career, and unfortunately she started to hit bumps in the road with that as well. And that's because by 1955, Ella was working with a new tour manager, and this guy's name was Norman Gantz. And I don't know if Norman Gantz disliked racism or he just wanted to make a stand, but baby, he was adamant about stopping Ella from performing in front of segregated crowds. He made it to where Ella could only take integrated performances. Well, in 1955, Norman booked Ella a show down in Texas. And on top of Ella on this show, there was Dizzy Gillespie and several other jazz players. So anyway, on the night of the show, I think Dizzy Gillespie may have been on stage, but backstage, there were the other musicians back there shooting dice. Ella was back there eating some cake. She was just standing yelling and talking to the tour manager, Norman Gantz, and then Norman Gantz starts to hear a lot of commotion and rumbling coming from the left side of backstage. So Norman goes walking to the left side of backstage to see what's going on, and he kind of peeks his head around the corner and he sees police officers bursting in, busting folks upside the head, pushing folks out the way. They yelling now, "Who's in charge of the gambling back here? And who do y'all N-words think y'all are singing in front of an integrated crowd? This is miscegenation." And so immediately Norman turns around, rushes back over to Ella, and he tells her to prepare to be arrested. And then he goes over and stands in front of the bathroom. So the police comes to where they are, and they do put Ella as well as several others in handcuffs and get ready to lead them out. And the whole time Ella and all of the other musicians are kind of looking at Norman like, you know, why are you just standing there in front of the bathroom door? But Norman never says a word. He never answers their questions. He knows exactly what he's standing there for. And sure enough, after the police hauled all the musicians outside and put them in the police cars, one lone police officer walks back into the backstage area with his hand in his pocket, and he heads straight to the bathroom. When he gets there, he tells Norman, "Move, why are you blocking the bathroom door?" And Norman tells him, "You know very well why I'm blocking the bathroom door. It's because you can't plant no drugs on none of these musicians." And baby, they say the policeman got irate, honey. He just, "You back talking me, boy?" And Norman is like, "I'm not back talking you. I just know the ish y'all do." Baby, as soon as he said it, that police officer rushed up to him and jabbed a gun into his stomach and threatened to shoot him. But Norman wouldn't move. He told the police officer, "If you shoot me dead, you'll have to do it right here because I am not moving from blocking this bathroom door." After they had this tense standoff for a little while, the cop finally gave up and walked off, and then Ella and the rest of the musicians were driven to a local jail, but they were only held for a couple of minutes before they were let go. And the fact that they were let go so easily made it obvious that they weren't arrested for no gambling, for miscegenation, and performing in front of an integrated crowd. They were arrested and hustled out of there because that cop wanted to come in and plant drugs on them and destroy all of their lives and all of their careers. And it was big thanks to Norman Gantz that this did not happen. Now, yes, there are rumors about Ella Fitzgerald and Norman Gantz. You know, allegedly she messed around with him. They had some sort of secret relationship, but I didn't see anything anywhere that would come close to confirming that rumor. But even though Ella might not have wanted that white boy, baby, there was another white boy that she was crazy over. And this guy's name was Thor Larson. Woo! Child. This man was from Norway, and I don't know if Ella met this man during a show or if she met him while they were walking down the street. But baby, the folks say she was crazy over him. Allegedly, Ella and Thor would meet in secret late at night. Whatever he was doing to Ella, baby, it had her furnishing that man's whole apartment, buying him a new wardrobe. And so to the people who knew her personally, it looked like once again Ella had been caught up with a man who was possibly using her for her money, just like it was with her first husband, Benny Cornegay. But Thor was so good at what he did that he was using Ella's money, and they weren't even married yet. Rumors about Ella and Thor's relationship started to be on everybody's lips, so much so that a gossip magazine actually printed that Ella was planning to marry Thor in secret. But honey, sooner or later, the truth came crashing through. That man was making a straight fool out of Ella. Honey, the folks say he was playing Ella, sitting up there talking and sleeping with her, and still was talking and sleeping around with his ex-fiance. But while Thor was going back and forth between the two ladies, he ended up messing up and getting himself blasted. And what happened is that he went to his ex's house, and for some reason they ended up getting into an argument. Thor was so upset that he ended up leaving the ex's house, but he took some of her belongings, or some of her money, maybe it was, with him. Well, the ex, who was already ticked off off that Thora was playing with her emotions like this went to the police. And the police came and arrested Thora. It was a huge deal. I think he ended up being sentenced to some type of house arrest stuff. You know, it was a major embarrassment for Ella Fitzgerald. Even though the world didn't know about Thora, a lot of her personal friends did. And so him getting caught up with all of this drama with his ex, Ella just let the whole thing go. After this failed relationship with Thora, Ella did not date anymore for a while, but what she did do was make several friends. And one of those very close friends was Marilyn Monroe. Now, Ella and Marilyn are both very big celebrities, and every time somebody hears about this relationship, there's always some sort of catty suspicion. You know, people wonder if their friendship was like Hattie McDaniel and Tallulah Bankhead, if you know what I mean. But no, it does not look like Ella Fitzgerald and Marilyn Monroe were like that at all. In fact, they bonded over the fact that they were both abused in their younger years. And so this friendship with Marilyn and Ella was very therapeutic and very beneficial, especially to Ella, because Marilyn Monroe helped open doors for Ella. Gossip claims that the Macombo nightclub would not hire Ella Fitzgerald as a singer for nothing in this world. And it didn't have anything to do with her being black, because they had other black singers like Eartha Kitt and Dorothy Dandridge, but see, these black singers were sex pots. And the Macombo just didn't feel like Ella Fitzgerald was sexy enough. You know, she looked quite matronly, really. So Marilyn Monroe heard that her friend was suffering about this, and so she went to the owner of the Macombo Club and she told him, hey, if you book Ella for a show here, I will come to your nightclub every night for the next 2 weeks and sit in the front row and bring all of my celebrity friends with me. And this deal right here worked. Within no time, the Macombo nightclub owner was on the phone booking Ella a show. In fact, I think she ended up having a 2-week engagement at the Macombo because of this. Now, Ella's life going into the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s was really not much change. You know, she was steadily working. She was jumping from kind of record label to record label. But even with the changes in music and the young teenagers coming up of every generation, it did not stop her schedule. Like, people still wanted to hear Ella Fitzgerald. So like I said, she was booked and busy through these decades. But by the time the late 80s came around, she started to have heart problem. And then in the early 1990s, her health continued to fail because she started to suffer with diabetes. As a matter of fact, in the year 1993, both of her legs had to be amputated from the knee down, I believe, because of the diabetes. Luckily, Ella did not have to go through this trauma alone, because gossip claims that around this time she was actually dating a local police officer. One thing that she did want to repair, though, at this time in her life was the relationship with her son, Ray Brown Jr., because allegedly they were still estranged at this time. You know, he was still upset with her for the way that he was raised. Thankfully, by 1996, gossip claims that relationship was finally repaired. You know, the son finally forgave his mother, and this was a great thing, because on June 15th, 1996, Ella Fitzgerald was at home and she had a stroke, and this stroke claimed her life at the age of 79 years old. Now, of course, Ella Fitzgerald has had a bunch of accolades and achievements and jazz festivals named after her, and she is definitely one of the ones who we can say became an outright legend during her own lifetime. So anyways, guys, this is the end of the old Hollywood scandalous story of Miss Ella Fitzgerald. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please go ahead and click the subscribe button, hit the like button, and I will be back with another video soon. Bye.